Hello, now I'm going to go through and work out the problems that are on this handout. Hopefully you've already tried them. I will talk through the first one and then work through the others, giving little tips as I go. If you haven't tried these yet, maybe pause and try a few before we get going. All right, the first thing I'm going to do when I work through these problems is I'm going to put a little line to separate the first half and the second half because they're factored by grouping and they all have 4 terms. So I'm just going to go through and do that. So right after the second term, I'm putting a little line to remind me what the first part of the grouping is and then the second part of the grouping. All right, that line doesn't have to be written, but it just kind of helps me remember where I am and points out to you what I'm doing. Now I'm looking at the first 2 terms here, x squared plus 3x, and find the greatest common factor of those terms, which is an x. So I factor that x out, and I'm left with an x plus 3. And again, when I factor out the common term, if I went back and distributed back in, I should be equivalent to what I had to start with. Now I go to the second 2 terms, and I say, what do they have as their greatest common factor? In this case, 2. So I factor out a 2. There was a plus here, so I'm factoring out a positive 2. And I'll get x plus 3. And once I do this, I should have 2 common binomial factors. In this case, x plus 3. I'll bring that out to the front. And my other binomial factor will be what's left, in this case, an x plus 2. All right. If I now FOILed this back out, I should get back to my original, and I could do that for a check if I wanted. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and work through a few more, and you can just follow along and check your work. On problem number 3, when I look at the second 2 terms, the only thing they have in common is 1, so I always factor something out, even if it's just a 1. I just wanted to remind you, order does not matter in the end of my factoring. I could have put the x plus 1 binomial first and the x plus 2 second. These are equivalent to each other. All right, on number 5, when I start, the first part factors out, just like we've been doing. But whenever I have a minus in front of the third term, I'm going to pull out the minus with the common factor, in this case 5, and that's like pulling out a negative 5. So inside here I'll have an x, so negative 5 times x gives me back the negative 5x. But to get that positive 15, I would have to be left with a minus 3, so that if I multiplied it back together, negative 5 times negative 3 would give me back that positive 15. All right, and then I do have my common binomial I can factor out. So when you have a negative in front of the third term, or a minus, you're going to pull out a negative 5, and then it will change the signs inside. On this one, the only thing they have in common is a 1, and it's a minus in front of the x, so I'll pull out a minus with the 1, and it will become an x plus 7 inside. Again, change this to sign because if I distributed back, I need to get back to the minus x minus 7. This one, the actually greatest common factor is actually an x squared, which we haven't seen before, but we can pull that out. And that happens again here. All right, I hope that was a good review of factoring four-term polynomials by grouping.